Australia is finally emerging from its EV infancy. You know, in some ways, we're pioneers and record breakers when it comes to clean energy solutions. Like here in South Australia, 2/3 of our energy is powered by renewables. But historically, there's been a disparity between our uptake of clean energy and our uptake of EVs, even though in many other parts of the world, they tend to go hand in hand. But almost overnight, the interest and the demand for EVs is through the roof, and we can't seem to get enough EVs into the country. So it's fortunate that in the midst of this Australian EV fervour, a company would emerge that caters to EV enthusiasts and novices alike. EVEE is an all-electric car sharing platform. It allows you to flirt with an EV model without the full commitment. It might be to test one out before purchasing, or a way for an enthusiast to add another notch in the belt of EV models that they've had experience driving. I'm also wondering if this could be the perfect platform for an electric skeptic to dip their toe in the EV waters and maybe even convert.
Like the Fully Charged Show? Then you will love our 6 live shows being held around the world in 2023, starting with Sydney, Australia on March the 11th and 12th.
Peer-to-peer car sharing is a transportation strategy that is growing in popularity around the world. Basically, it allows people to rent out their own cars, or even a fleet of cars, to customers. Now, EVEE is a peer-to-peer car sharing platform that is obviously EV exclusive.
We know that EVs are only better for the environment when they're being used, by offsetting the initial impact of the vehicle and battery manufacturing and displacing an internal combustion engine vehicle on the road. EVEE ensures that the EVs aren't just sitting stagnant in their owners' garages. Instead, they're being used to travel across the country. Owners turn their EV into an asset by generating income and offsetting the upfront cost of the car.
And renters, or customers, can rent an EV for short or long periods of time, sometimes even completely foregoing car ownership themselves and using this portal instead.
So we probably have 2 distinctive groups of customers. One of them is those who are interested in electric vehicles and, just trying what it's like because they've never driven one before. So renting one sounds like a really low barrier activity to do without, spending a lot of money. So they do that. And another large group of customers is actually travelers. About 10% of our customers come from overseas. Roughly 30% travel interstate. So those are individuals who already have an electric vehicle in a different location, and when they travel, they just don't want to drive anything other than an electric car.
And what are the costs compared to, other car hiring or car sharing platforms?
So if we compare with traditional car rental fleets, our pricing is actually lower because most of the hosts don't need to make a profit on the renting out of their vehicles. If they just cover the cost of ownership, they're most of the time happy. Hence, they're happy to rent their vehicles out for a slightly lower price than traditional car rentals.
Okay, now for some context. With the rest of the world going gangbusters for EVs, why does Australia need a helping hand?
I've already mentioned that almost overnight, EV demand here has exploded, increasing by 65% in 2022, according to latest reports. The Hyundai Ioniq 5 sold out within minutes last year. Besides interest in the cool tech of electric vehicles, with petrol prices soaring, there is an economic motivation for people to electrify their vehicles. And with the prices of EVs set to drop considerably due to things like tax cuts and an emerging second-hand market, they've become very, very appealing.
But if we look at the actual numbers, electric vehicle sales in Australia are just only over 3% of new vehicle sales. Compare that to a place like the UK, where they make up about 16.6% of new vehicle sales, and then a place like Norway, where they make up a whopping 79.3% of new vehicle sales. And it shows we're falling way behind. For those of you who aren't aware, Australia currently lacks minimum fuel efficiency standards for carbon dioxide emissions. And because of this, manufacturers prioritise sending their EVs to markets where these standards are in place, and there's an actual requirement for more EVs to be on the road. It makes more economic sense to send your product to these bigger, incentivised markets than to send them to Australia. But in actual fact, these standards serve by putting the pressure on car manufacturers to sell EVs in these markets in order to offset the sales of their petrol-guzzling models. Otherwise, they won't meet their emission targets and can face hefty fines. So one of the impacts of this is that we currently only have around 60 pure electric model variants available to purchase in Australia, compared to, say, 140 in the UK.
Our average rental is about 3 days, but it ranges anywhere from a single day up to several weeks. Our longest rental so far was actually over 90 days long. There was a customer from the UK who was staying, in Australia for an extended period of time, and they just wanted the vehicle here instead of buying an electric car.
So who are your hosts across Australia?
I would say there's definitely a few groups as well. Some of them are individuals who already have an electric vehicle, but they might not use it all that much. So when it's not used, they list it on the platform and share it with others, which doesn't only benefit them financially, but also gives them a way to promote electric cars as the future of transport. Another group of hosts are those who look at it purely from a financial perspective. They list their vehicles, make them available most of the time. We have amazing host stories when they started with a single car and they've grown their fleets up to 4 or 5 vehicles now, making those kind of small businesses for themselves. Another great story many great stories that we have from our customers are those who rented through the platform first, then they went on to buy the electric vehicle and released it back on the platform to share with others. So this is the cycle that we want to encourage and promote through the platform.
Okay, so I'm on the EVEE platform. I've followed Slava's instructions. Tesla Model 3. Cool, that one's not too far away. I'll book this one. Gottfried, 75 5-star reviews. That sounds good to me.
So let's say I walk in, I'm here to hire your precious Tesla Model 3 and I know squat about EVs. Is that okay? Like with a quick tutorial from you, am I going to be confident enough to be able to drive it?
I get that quite a bit. About 50% have never driven one. Most of the time I make it drive like an automatic, show them that, it creeps, and then press this button and now you can do one pedal driving. I take them show them how to unplug it, plug it, how to put it in gear, the basics. Take them for a drive up the hill, show them how to use it. I generally say, give me half an hour to show you how to use the car, how to charge it, then ask me as many questions as you like. And once you drive off, you can ring me at any time, because I know probably 60% of what I said is probably going in one ear and straight out the other, because it's just an overload of information.
What proportion of the customers would you say are new to EVs?
Considering the uptake of electric vehicles, which is still less than 1%, if I'm not mistaken, in Australia, it's definitely the majority of people. If I'm not wrong, again, in 2020, the sales of electric cars were just about 3% out of all electric vehicles. So absolute majority of renters are first-time EV drivers. And it's a great opportunity for them to get introduced to what it's like to drive an electric vehicle.
Do many people then go on to purchase an EV after they've used the EV service?
That is definitely the case. We did a survey prior to COVID, which was a bit easier to collect the data. So if we look at the next 6 months after the rental, the customers who've engaged with our service are 20% of them plan to buy an electric vehicle within 6 months of renting, compared to those who don't know about our business, which was standing at 5%. If we look at the 2 years, based on our analytics, 40% of our customers are planning to buy an electric car within 2 years, compared to those who haven't rented through us at about 10%.
If I'm considering buying an EV, it's really appealing to me to have a one-stop shop where I can try out a model or two, or maybe even compare a couple of models before I buy. And what I also love is the fact that you do get that real personalised handover, so you can find out the lowdown on what it's really like to drive day to day.
So this has profiles when you got in the car according to the key fob that you now have. It's logged you as an EV1 rental. So when I click on that, it moves the car seats, the mirror settings, everything to the way it was for however you set it up.
Okay.
If you have a second person with you, your partner, then they can have their own profile. And if they're a taller person, everything's set up different, air conditioning, music, everything's different. I just press it up there, change it, and now everything moves to theirs.
And are people pleasantly surprised after they've had a few days in your Tesla as to what they experience?
Within the first 30 minutes. They're
quickly?
pretty much convinced. So then it's just go have fun.
I really think EVEE is a great way to get around the current EV shortages as well. So in Australia, they're both due to supply chain issues as well as the issues that I mentioned earlier. But they sell like hotcakes, so if you're a buyer, you might be waiting several months to access the latest, hottest new EV model on the market. But what if you could find one on EVEE?
The number one, the most popular electric vehicle on our platform is definitely Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus. So it's the basic Tesla model. Unsurprisingly, because they are the most popular vehicle when it comes to the sales as well. Really leading the way with the Tesla Model 3 and Tesla Model Y compared to other cars. Having said that, we also have vehicles, other branded vehicles. This is Polestar, Hyundai, Mini Electric, and a range of others as well.
Another way that EVEE may be able to help people jump on board with EVs is by helping to dispel some of the myths that are still hanging around. You know, some of the primitive attitudes. The other day I got, EVs aren't fit for Australia, our country's too big. And it's like, have a go yourself with one for a few days and see that that's an irrational fear. I mean, most of us aren't commuting 300 kilometres a day. And even if you are, we've now got charging stations at over 2,000 locations in Australia. Admittedly, when you do go rural, occasionally you'll come across some spots with ancient chargers that are painfully slow, or there's only one plug available, so you have to hope it's not in use or out of order. And these things have in the past rightfully caused some range anxiety. But with the government intending to add an extra 700 fast charging locations over the next 5 years, we're finally moving forward with the rest of the world in having the infrastructure to thrive in EV driving. So what that basically means is that in 7 years, charging your EV here with 100% renewable energy means it'll be able to run on effectively zero emissions, which is pretty exciting. So I hear you have expansion plans into New Zealand, is that correct?
Yes, we actually are already in New Zealand. We launched the platform just at the end of last month. We are now onboarding new hosts and looking for individuals and small businesses with electric cars to join the platform and help us grow the business in New Zealand. New Zealand, because it's the number one travel destination between the two countries, Australia and New Zealand, we were definitely planning to expand further. Most likely, this will be followed by the UK and Europe after that.
I could really get used to this. Already I'm thinking of other EV models that I'd love to get my hands on through EVEE that I haven't had a chance to drive yet. Testing the waters is such a great concept, and I really think that this service is going to lower barriers into the EV market. There are a lot of people out there who are interested in EV technology itself rather than having an attachment to a particular model. So this is a great way to get to know a few different EVs, either with a view to purchase or just to keep things interesting. And maybe it's time to rethink the need to even own a car with a service like this available.